Double-click on the VS Code shortcut icon to launch VS Code. The first time you open VS Code, you'll be greeted by a welcome screen. If you see this dialog box in the lower right corner, you can click on the gear button to prevent this message from showing again. This is optional, but here I'm going to select Yes, Ignore All to ignore all extension recommendations. For the color theme, feel free to select a color theme that you like. I'm going to stick with the default dark modern theme. Check this Mark Done link. Uncheck this box to show welcome page on startup. Close the Welcome tab by clicking on this X. You can adjust the size of the user interface by using Ctrl+ or Ctrl-. Along the left-hand side are a set of large buttons. Click on the Extensions button to open the Extensions panel. The Extensions button is the button with 4 squares, with one of the squares being slightly offset. There are a lot of different extensions available for VS Code, but to use Julia in VS Code, you only need one extension. In the search bar, search for Julia. Install the Julia extension. Close the Extensions panel by clicking on the Extensions button again. You can read the description for the Julia extension at your leisure. For now, I'm going to close this tab by clicking on the X. Click on the Explorer button to open the Explorer panel. The Explorer button is the top button along the left-hand side. The Explorer panel is where you will see all of your folders and files. You need to open at least one folder to begin using VS Code. I set up a folder earlier named Series 10, so that's the folder that I'm going to select. But you can select any folder that you like. If you don't have a particular folder that you want to use, just select your desktop folder. At the warning dialog box, check the box to Trust the Authors and click on the Yes, I Trust the Authors button. To set up a new folder, click on the New Folder button. I'm going to set up a new folder named Tutorial 10x06, but you can name it whatever you like. To set up a new file, be sure that the folder where you want to place your new file is highlighted, and then click on the New File button. I'm going to set up a new file named hello.jl. You can name your file whatever you like, but be sure to save it with a .jl file extension. Using the .jl file extension tells VS Code that this is a text file that contains code written in the Julia programming language. If you see this dialog box, click Yes to help the Julia team working on the Julia extension. Or if you're concerned about privacy, then click No. If you see another dialog box, you can click the X in the upper right corner to close the box. click on the Explorer button again and close the Explorer panel. Before you get started, turn on the autosave option. Depending on the size of your user interface, you may see a hamburger menu button in the upper left corner. Clicking on the hamburger menu button will bring up several options. From here, select File, then Autosave to toggle on the Autosave option. You may need to scroll down to see the Autosave toggle option. In the editor, type in println hello world and then hit enter. Notice that the editor highlights the code for you while you're typing. In addition, when you type in open parenthesis, it automatically gives you a close parenthesis. Same thing for the double quotes. Even though this code is identical to the code that you entered into the Julia REPL, when you hit enter in VS Code, the code is not evaluated. By default, there are 3 different ways to evaluate Julia code using the Julia extension in VS Code. Shift-Enter will evaluate a line of code, and then move the cursor to the next line of code. Control-Enter will evaluate a line of code, but will keep the cursor at that line of code. And Alt-Enter will evaluate all of the code in the entire file. In this particular case, it doesn't matter which option you select, since there's only one line of code. But I typically use Shift-Enter, so that's what I'm going to do here. Place the cursor at the end of the line of code that you want to evaluate, and then hit Shift-Enter. The first time you try to evaluate code using the Julia extension in VS Code, a terminal window will open up and automatically launch the Julia REPL. When that happens, the Julia extension will do some stuff in the background, so there will be a noticeable delay. But you will eventually see Hello World appear in the REPL window. If you see Hello World, then congratulations! You have successfully used Julia in VS Code. In addition, you have successfully created and saved your first .jl file. For the rest of this tutorial series, you will use VS Code along with the Julia extension as your primary programming environment. To exit the Julia REPL, click on the REPL, then type in exit, immediately followed by a pair of parentheses. In the editor, place your cursor at the end of line 1 and hit Shift-Enter again. The REPL will reappear, and you'll see Hello World again. Except this time, there won't be a long delay. So that covers the basics of using Julia in VS Code. In the next chapter, you'll learn how to perform basic math using Julia.